Hey guys, little question and answer video from all the questions that I get asked on Instagram. The first question is by Brian Page Howell, my friend, and he's asking, what do you like better, Drift Masters or Formula Drift, and why? And I've been asked that question before by Aaron in one of the Lone Star Drift Week interviews. And I can honestly say that there's a lot to say for both. Obviously, you need to have some frame of reference what you're looking at, because DMEC last year it got cut short, a lot of the rounds got cancelled and stuff, and sadly that's also part of it, because that's right now that's part of Europe, and that's also a big reason why I'm going to America. But if you look at DMEC not in that frame of reference, so just DMEC like pre-COVID, let's just do that, then I think that what's a lot better in DMEC is the judging. No offense to the FD judges, but I've never ever disagreed with a call in DMEC. Some calls in Formula Drift I've been like, yeah, maybe I would have seen that a little bit differently. So I think the judging level is very, very high. Kieran Hines used to do that, Vernon Zwaneveld, a couple other guys doing it. So I think they're doing a fantastic job. What I really like now is the cooperation with Red Bull TV, where Red Bull TV provides a fantastic live stream for DMEC, where you can see the guys hitting the clipping zones in your screen. You're going to be seeing these little stars if they fulfill these outer zone or make these clips. That is fantastic. The broadcasting is fantastic. The drones, everything, the announcing, David Egan and his team. I think that's really fantastic the way they do that. FD could actually learn from that. What I really like about FD is that the cars are faster. Of course, cars are catching up in DMEC in Europe, but if you look at like Piotr's car, how much of a difference it was with the other cars in DMEC. So guys are catching up. I'm not saying that they're slow, but in FD those cars are so ridiculously gripped up that it almost feels like you're driving a standard 325i or a standard S14, because they have 5 times the amount of power compared to a standard car, but they also have technically 5 times the amount of grip. So it's not a really easy car to drive. I always see this meme where people say, if you can't drift with 100 horsepower, 1000 horsepower won't help you. Of course I agree with that, but if you can drift with 100 horsepower, it doesn't mean that you can drift with 1000 horsepower, because those cars are really, really crazy. And I think that that's what I really like about FD. So it's really like pushing the envelope on how far you can go with a drift car. It really is the level of technology at its peak, and I think that's really nice. If you look at the shock and setups on those cars, nitrous setups, of course America is a little bit further along the road with nitrous. In Europe that's still kind of uncharted territory. You can see guys now like James and Piotr running it, but in America I think almost everybody runs it, and they have power adders and they have big engines. So that's really the aspect that I like. I think driver level it's on par. So of course a lot of people say, well, look at these DMEC drivers, they would really absolutely kill an FD. Of course, but I think that the top 10 of the FD drivers would also really kill in DMEC. So I think driver level is almost on par. And it's just very difficult to compare a DMEC driver on a DMEC track versus an FD driver on an FD track. We would really need to mix them up. Like I would love to see guys like Adam Zalewski, Dwayne McKeever, the Shanahan guys make it to America, drift over there. But I would also love to see guys like Chelsea compete in DMEC. So it's kind of a thing, like it's not really easy to compare them. But from my point of view, like I've drifted with some DMEC guys, I've drifted with some FD guys, and yeah, they're all really, really good. So that's kind of my thing. If you would put a gun to my head, because I always give the answers that people really don't want to hear, but if you would put a gun to my head and you would say like, hey, you need to choose, or a sponsor would say, hey, we think you're good enough, you can do either DMEC or FD, then I would choose FD, because I really like the American continent. I like some aspects of FD very much, like it has a little bit more ceremony, like the whole anthem, national anthem thing that they have, and yeah, I'm kind of a sucker for that. I kind of like that. It's a little bit bigger. If you take a look at how many people attend an FD event, I really like that. I like drifting for crowds. So that's kind of if I really had to choose, I would say right now FD. but I would only want to do it in a good car. Like RTR Mustang is an amazing car. Like I would love to build a BMW with a motor like that, with a drivetrain like that, with a team like that, because it's not just a car, it's also the whole team that they have behind them at RTR and at these top teams like Papadakis. So I really would like to do that. I really would love to do FD, but only with a great team and with a great car. That would really bring me a lot of joy. And I drifted Monroe, which is an FD track, and I can only imagine how sick that would be in an FD car with the grandstands filled up. And guys keep telling me that for instance Monroe has fantastic crowds, so for me that would be the dream come true. I think DMEC is also fantastic, but the problem is right now in Europe that we of course are suffering from this whole COVID situation, where we see a lot of stuff cancelled, like Nürburgring Drift Cup was cancelled 2 times in a row. DMEC was cancelled for 1 season. DMEC got cancelled a couple rounds. So, you know, that's also one of those things. If you commit to that, you really want to be able to drive, and you really want to be able to interact with the fans, meet the fans, give high fives to the fans and all that stuff. And at some points you need to have all your crew tested and all that stuff, and it's just not very viable to fly out, get your crew somewhere and have them all tested, and if one of them would test positive, your whole crew would be quarantined and all this stuff. So you just can't have that. And sadly that's also part of the sport, because in America that doesn't happen. So if you look at these 2 things combined, I would say my heart would go out to FD right now. Of course FD could also evolve into a more DMEC style of tracks, which would be fantastic. So you can get best of both worlds that way. So a question I got from Myron is, how do I see the future of Drift Week? It's a really interesting question. Of course, Drift Week is kind of mirrored of Drag Week, which means that if we would completely keep following the Drag Week phenomenon, it would become really big, because Drag Week is really massive and the cars are insane, like pro street cars doing that stuff. I think I saw the other day on David Freiberger's feed that they went into the 5s with a Drag Week car, which is insane. It means it's a car that they drive for all those hundreds or thousands of miles they drive on the street, and they go under 6 seconds with their car on Drag Week, which is of course incredible. So I personally don't think that Drift Week is ever going to be as big as Drag Week for various reasons. Of course, the drag racing world is much bigger than the drifting world. But if you know Aaron a little bit, he doesn't want it to become unmanageable. I have no idea how they manage Drag Week. It must be a lot of work, a lot of preparation. So I would think that you would need a lot of people for that. So the nice thing about Drift Week, of course, is that it keeps changing. For me, that's very nice. So I did Drift Week 2 to Drift Week 3. Drift Week 2 was a lot about the YouTubers as well. We had of course the Hoonigan guys, we had Adam LZ, we visited Cletus's place. Drift Week 3 had a completely different atmosphere. On Drift Week 2 we did a huge amount of traveling, like it was incredible. Arizona to Texas to New Mexico, Alabama. We went to so many different states, of course. Drifted in those states. Amazing to go to all these different tracks for me in one visit. But it's kind of tough. Like we had some bad luck, of course, in Drift Week 3. We are yet to find out what Drift Week 4 is going to be all about. It's going to be in California, so it's going to be a very different vibe than the rest of. It's going to be in California, so it's going to be a completely different vibe than the rest of the Drift Weeks. Pretty cool. It doesn't look like there's a huge amount of traveling going on. It looks like there's kind of more of doing 2 days at the same track all the time. So that's kind of cool if you look at it that way. There's going to be 2 days at every track that we attend, and I really like that because I always need a little bit of time for a track to sink in, and the second day that I drive a track I usually do much better. So I really like that, really excited about that. Also excited about a lot of the other drivers that are coming. Of course California has quite a good grassroots scene, so there's a couple guys that I follow that I really want to meet in person, so I'm sure we're going to have a great time there. And my friend Myron had another question, which was about Klutch Kickers. This question was, how do you feel about Klutch Kickers? And it's actually kind of simple. I think it's a really cool series, and I think it's a very good example of how to alternatively do things. So they obviously operate on a whole different set of rules regarding their car specifications, which means that you have a very good spread of drivers that you could call Pro-Am or even under Pro-Am, like really grassroots level, and guys like Alec Honadale, who are XFD drivers with XFD cars, and I think it's fantastic what they're doing. Castleberry family down in Florida in the Panhandle, really cool. Really love that track. I've been there on Drift Week. So the great thing, what I really like about that track is that it's such an equalizer, so it basically allows you to run your Pro-Am or grassroots car against FD cars and you could still stand a chance. Like if you take for instance a car like Brandon Wicknick's or Fielding Shredders, which is of course a pretty good car, but it's not a huge budget build, and I think they're on around between 400 and 500 horsepower, 2 JC engines, and they could totally win that event. And I think that that's amazing. Like in DMEC you would probably not even qualify with that power and grip level, and in FD obviously you wouldn't even stay on the bank. So I think that's really cool. I think that's a fantastic thing with the Klutch Kickers series. I really want to compete there. It's probably going to happen in 2021. Got some news for you guys, and I really think that it's such a nice aspect of the sport that you're just able to put the series together. Michael Castleberry does a great job, of course, with the cash prizes to attract high-end drivers, and then it immediately, like, I agree that sometimes, like if you're in the lower rounds, so if you're like in the top 32, then it's obviously not FD level driving, but as soon as you go into top 16 or top 8, it becomes some extremely exciting drifting to watch. The track, I can tell you, it looks really simple. Anybody who can link a track will absolutely do one lap on the track and get it 80% right from the beginning, but to get it 100% right, that's not very easy. It's a track that you could drive many times and still find out new ways about it. I really enjoyed it. It's a fantastic track for battles. You could say it's perfectly designed for battles because you have really nice long sweeping corners. Transitions need to be really good. Your chaser can really make up some ground, so if you fall behind you can still make up some ground in the transitions. But you can also clearly tell in the Klutch Kickers series that people run a lot of grip. Like those cars are really crazy gripped up. So that's also one of those things. So it's still not 100% bring any car you want. You still need to have your setup right. And for me that's a very important part of drifting. I guess I would be a little less interested if the car quality wouldn't matter at all. So there's a lot of people saying, like, it shouldn't be the car, it should only be the driver. I agree with that, of course, but one of my interests in drifting and motorsports in general is also the car, the setting up of the car, the quality and everything. So that's an important part of it for me too. So sorry, somebody was asking me something. So that's one thing, and really like watching that series. So give those guys a like, follow that series, and check. A question from my friend from New York, Frank Leo Grande. Hey man, what's up? He's asking if I'm going to do a trip to the East Coast, and he's even offering me to let him drive his E30 for a couple laps. Thank you so much, man. These messages mean the world to me. I think that's so amazing. Like, a bunch of people let me drive their cars. A lot of people really help me out with things like getting all these little things done that you need to do as a foreigner to be in America. Like, I need to get a SIM for my cell phone. I need a place to stay. I need people to take packages for me that I send up ahead with spares and stuff. Thank you guys so much. That's so amazing. It's very important for me, all that stuff. And driving somebody else's car, getting that level of trust from somebody, that's really amazing. I really like that. So it would be fantastic for me to travel to the East Coast. Last time I went to Boston because of the flight from the Pacific Northwest to Europe. You can't do that in one go, so you need to have some layover somewhere. So I went to friends in Boston, but I definitely see that happening this time again. It's very likely that I'm gonna have another stopover on the East Coast. Last time I was really close to getting to Chris Knapp, to E-Town, of course, with Max and all those guys, and hang out with them. I just could not make that happen. I was just short with the kind of flights. With the COVID situation, flights is all a little bit different, but really would love to hit the East Coast, meet some of you guys there. It's been a while since I've been on the East Coast, so it would be so fantastic just to link up with you guys. So yeah, that's definitely on the to-do list, Frank. Would be an honor to meet you, would be an honor to drive your car. So yeah, for sure, could happen this year. Look a little bit into the situation with the stopovers, with the flights back home. But yeah, would be a dream come true. Like, I feel so blessed that I've been able to drift coast to coast. So we went to Florida, did the 2 tracks in Florida, Klutch Kickers and Cletus's place, and we also drifted in Oregon, which means that I officially drifted on both coasts of the United States, and the majority of tracks or the majority of states in between there. If you travel from coast to coast, I drifted there. So that's really a fantastic dream come true for me in less than a year. So thank you guys, everybody who helped make that happen. And yeah, probably link up with you in New York City, Frank.
Don't forget to take a look at our website as well, einzel.nl. We ship worldwide, of course, Wisefab, Feel Suspension, our own brand Einzel, gearboxes, quick change differentials, axles, all kinds of things. A lot of fabrication components, of course, air jacks, subframes for quick change, you name it. Drop us an email and we'll hook you up.
Question that we get a lot is, how do you get in Drift Week? It's actually quite simple. You need to be recommended by at least 2 drivers that have been on a previous Drift Week. So that means that right now there's an amount of drivers added for Drift Week 3, but they cannot vouch for a new driver. So it needs to be somebody who has done a Drift Week before the current Drift Week. So let's say that you want to enter, you need to have Chelsea or Chelsea Fielding vouch for you, for instance. Chelsea vouched for me on Drift Week 2. That's how I got in. So you need to have 2 drivers that have Drift Week experience to vouch for you, and that's how you get in. Apart from that, the way you do it is completely different. Like, you can bring a lot of spares. You can really crazy prepare a car. You can go cold turkey. You can run high budget. You can run low budget. It just depends a lot. What I really like is a strategy. So if you make a car that's really gnarly, like almost an FD spec car, it's going to be very difficult to get that car from one round to the other, because you're not allowed to trailer it, and that's obviously a strategic thing. So a car that would really rip on the track would not be the perfect car to travel from track to track with. So that kind of takes a little strategy. I really like that. And Aaron seems to have a talent for picking tracks where you can run, for instance, 325 and as well do good with a competition car. Like, for instance, Rudy Hansen has this LS1 powered S13 with a dog box and everything. That's fantastic. Median car, I would say. So it's like a normal LS1 in that car. But it's nice, it has a dog box, so you don't have gearbox trouble in it. Has Wisefab on it, has Feel Suspension on it, so it's a fantastic car. I really like my car as well, as there was one track where I thought it lacked a little bit of power, and that was running the Bank at the Freedom Factory. We couldn't do that with our power level on the M3. But apart from that, I would say the M3 was almost perfect for all the tracks we went to. And my California guys assure me that it's a very good car for Drift Week 3 as well. Power to weight ratio and all that stuff. So can't really wait to do that. I got a question from my friend Nigel. And the question was, you have a turbocharged car and you have a V8 car, which one do you like best? That's obviously something that we've touched upon a couple times on this channel, and also in the Lone Star interviews, the Drift Week interviews. I'm a big V8 guy, and that's mostly because of the packaging. So the V8 in my black car, that's been such an amazing engine. It's really small. It's really easy to put in a car. It's very easy to get a sump for it that fits in a car. And there's a huge amount of transmissions for that car. And I really enjoy driving it because it's such a good and honest layout that you can really focus on the driving itself. So what you're doing with the steering wheel, what you're doing with the weight of the car. The turbo car is a little bit more difficult to drive because obviously the power band is not on par with the V8. I think that we have a really good power band in that car, so I can only imagine that there's a lot of guys that build differently to have even a bigger turbo gap than we have. So it doesn't really make it much easier. And one thing to consider with the V8 is that let's say in the chase that you lock yourself up a little bit and you're closing in behind somebody who slows down a little bit too much, then you wanted him or her Then in the V8, if you're like, let's say that you're in third gear and you're a little bit on low RPM for that gear, you can still get along and your car won't straighten out. And with the turbo car, you probably need to clutch kick and all that stuff. So obviously the wow factor of the turbo is a little more intense if you drive it and the turbo kicks in. I like the V8 sound really well if it's like a built V8. If it's like a standard V8, obviously I can understand that it's not everybody's favorite sound, but if it has a nice cabinet, a high compression and a light flywheel, then it's a fantastic sounding car in my opinion. So I have to say I would go for the V8. That would be my absolute go-to car. We're building the E36 show car now, which is also going to be a V8 car, American V8 car. So yeah, so I would say I enjoy the V8 a little bit more, and also because of the seat time aspect, like it's undeniable that the V8 is going to be a little bit more reliable than any turbo car, because there's just more moving parts on a turbo car. So you have a wastegate that could fail, the mapping is much more elaborate, so something could go wrong with a sensor or with a vacuum line or with something like that, and it would mess up the car. And I really like on the V8s that it's such a simple car. Like on my V8 car, there's not one sensor needed to run the car. The only sensors in the car are for temperature and pressure, so there's absolutely nothing that could happen. And on a turbo car, let's say your IAT sensor fails, or your or some kind of hose, like James Dean had that in Riga, I think it was 2 years ago. Some hose of the map sensor comes off and it just ends your day. So I really like the simplicity of the V8. I like the compactness of the V8. I've touched on this subject so many times. If you put the V8 in the car for the first time with no headers, with nothing in it, it totally disappears into the engine bay, and it's pretty nice. And with the turbo car, you want to run a pretty big intake manifold. You obviously have the piping, the downpipe of the turbo, you have the piping for the intercooler, so it always gets a little bit more crowded in the engine bay. So I really like the simplicity of the V8. Obviously there's also some drawbacks, like a built V8 is going to cost you more than a turbo built if you go for horsepower versus horsepower. Yeah, so it's kind of what you like. I love both cars, but if I really had to choose with a gun against my head, I would take the V8 any day. So let me know what you guys think. I mean, that's also important. That's why we do these videos. I love hearing from you guys in the comments. I love these questions. And yeah, just let me know what's on your mind. Let me know if you think I'm right. Let me know if you think I'm wrong. So that's it. And let me know if there's any more questions. Love doing these things. Love communicating with you guys. And see you on the channel.